Oh, hi everyone. My name is Ron Falconi, and I want to welcome all of you to Meet Your Neighbor. I had this idea back in the fall of 2006 where I wanted to interview local politicians, local business people, and local people here in the area so all of you would have the opportunity to meet your neighbor. We have a very special guest today. He is actually a past guest of Meet Your Neighbor. He was a state representative running for the state Senate, but now he's a sitting United States Congressman, and I'm honored to have United States Congressman Bob Gibbs here to the studios.
Ron, glad to be here.
Congressman, thanks for coming down here, coming up to Brunswick
No, I
again
really
today.
like getting up here.
Bob, can you tell us something about yourself?
Well, I ran for a state rep back in 2003 and served the 5 townships in the southern part of the county. And then in 2008, I ran for state senate, and I represented the entire county and also Ashland and Holmes counties. And then in 2010, I decided to run for Congress because I was upset of the direction this country was headed.
Sure.
The very massive deficits and increasing debt. Now we're over 17 trillion in debt, bigger than our economy, and all the uncertainty coming out of Washington D.C. And I think I was just happened to be in a unique position to maybe do something about it, being a sitting state senator at the time.
Yes.
And I ran and I was successful, and I beat out a 2-term incumbent, which was the old 18th Congressional District, which was not this part. And then 2 years ago, when they did redistricting, I was redistricted up here in the Brunswick area, in the western Brunswick and Brunswick Hills and points north.
Hey, Bob, you kind of alluded to this. Describe for me your congressional district. You said it was the old 18th, but now it's the 7th?
7th. Yeah, we lost 2 congressional seats here in
Yes.
Ohio, so now we have 16 instead of 18. And this congressional district that I have the privilege of representing is the 7th, which includes most of Stark County, the Canton-Massillon area, northern Tuscarawas, New Philly, Dover, Holmes, Coshocton, Ashland, and Knox counties down Mount Vernon. And then we come up into Richland County, northern Richland, the Shelby area, eastern Richland, and then up into Huron County, all the way up to just about Norwalk, and then western Medina here, western Brunswick, Brunswick Hills, Lodi, and the western parts of Medina, Valley City. And then we, in Lorain County, we have southern Lorain County, and we go up to North Ridgeville and Avon. So it's kind of
pretty diverse.
It's kind of funny. I touched Avon Lake, so I'm 1 mile from Lake Erie. And before I touched Lawrence County, which is the furthest southernest county in Ohio, and I had St. Clairsville and Chillicothe. So I had a big
wow.
change.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a great district, and I kind of live in the center of the district now, so it's easier getting around.
That's good. Congressman, can you tell me what does a congressman do on a regular basis? Is there a typical day for you, perhaps, or is there a typical day for you?
Well, we're in Washington a lot. Congress meets, there's 435 members in the U.S. House of Representatives and 100 senators, and it makes up 535 members from all around the country. And obviously, we have to pass the laws, public policy, and I think the most important thing that the federal government's responsibilities are national defense, and it's pretty clear in the Constitution. But then how we spend spend tax dollars, monies, infrastructure, education, whatever, and so then we also have a role of oversight in the House. We have the checks and balances between the executive branch and the judicial branch and the legislative branch, and
Sure.
So we've been pretty active in the oversight areas too right now. And so it's setting public policy for the country,
Sure.
and then oversight to make sure we keep this confidence in the federal government for the American people, and make it as transparent as possible. And that's accountability, because if the American people lose trust in their government, and then we risk losing what we have here in this country.
Oh, absolutely. Bob, how much time do you spend in D.C.? How much time do you spend here in the 7th
We have a pretty good
District?
set schedule. Usually we go to D.C. 3 weeks in a row.
Okay.
We're there for 3 full days. And then we have what we call it on the 4th week, usually, we call it District Work Week. And this week, with the 4th of July holiday,
Is it District Work Week?
District Work Week, and we try to get out in the district and talk to people and find out what's going on, meet with business people, and do things like that. And then I'm back to D.C. next week. But it's a pretty, we're in D.C. a lot. A lot more than when I was a state senator in Columbus, but that's just how it works. So I get out, I come home every weekend, and the weeks in between there,
Sure.
so I can stay as close to my constituents, and don't want to be. I want to keep what we got here in Ohio, and because DC, it's kind of a different world there. I'm not sure everybody's grounded the way they should be.
I could imagine.
Yeah.
But Congressman, what do you see as some of the biggest issues facing facing America right now?
Well,
I know there are a lot of them.
Well, the economy is a
Sure.
major one. Obviously, we've had double-digit unemployment. Now we're down to just below 7%. We got a lot of people that have left the workforce. Our labor
Right.
participation rate is at an all-time high, and so we have a stagnant economy. This first quarter of this year, the final reports came out. It actually went negative, almost 3%, negative growth. And this is now the longest, weakest recovery since a business cycle turndown like we had in 09 through 10. And there's a lot of uncertainty out there. And I argue that a lot of that is business people are kind of hold back because they don't know what's happening in this country. They're being choked by very heavy-handed government regulations and taxes, and so that's a big thing, of course, in our foreign policy right now is that it's a disaster. The United States hasn't shown leadership, and we've created a vacuum, and people like Putin from Russia, you see what they've done in Crimea and Ukraine.
Yes.
We're seeing what's happening in Iran, of course, what's happened now with the ISIS terrorist organization. It's an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. From taking over lots of Syria and a lot of Iraq, and the threat of losing Iraq, setting up a base for terrorists to have a base, a staging ground, training ground for attacks on our country again, which is a real possibility. So I'm really concerned about where we're heading as a country with our spending out of control.
Sure.
And it's not a revenue problem. Last year, at the end of the fiscal year, we brought in about $2.8 trillion. It's a record amount of money we've ever brought in. It's a spending problem. Now we've made a little bit on spending with the Republican Congress and the House. We've cut spending. We actually had 3 years in a row where total spending is actually down, mostly because of the discretionary spending. First time since the Korean War. But it's not enough. We got to set our priorities and be responsible. And we can't keep borrowing from China and other places. And but we got to set our priorities.
Speaking of government regulations, what are your thoughts on Obamacare?
We need to repeal it and replace it. We need. I don't think there's any doubt anybody that doesn't think that we needed healthcare reform because we had, escalating costs. It was getting so nobody could afford it. But we need to put in market-based principles and make sure it's patient-centered, where you as a patient, me as a patient, are working with our physicians and directing our own healthcare, not some bureaucrat in Washington D.C. And so there's some things we could do. Health savings accounts is a great way to get the personal responsibility back, and where patients are having some control of their health care, and cross state lines, get some competition in the health insurance market like we have in the property and casualty market and the auto market.
Yes.
So there's some things we can do to increase competition that will ultimately increase service. I was self-employed from 1978 to 2003 when I became a state rep, and on a day-to-day basis we would kind of complain about competition, but we all, that's what makes us great because as a country, because you got to get up. It's just human nature to slack off, but when you got to do something, because if you don't, you'll be out of business. That's just competition's is one of the things that's made this country great. Our free market capitalist system.
You said you were a farmer?
Yes.
How has being a farmer prepared you for public office?
Well, I think in agriculture you got to be kind of nimble, flexible, and be able to adapt to change. And adapt to the new technologies and be ready to, almost on the fly make changes, when the market changes or get weather issues. And so I think, I'm used to being able to facilitate things when things need to be done. And I like to say I've written on both sides of a paycheck, which I think is important. So I know what our business people are going through to hire people, make payroll, make a profit, and grow their businesses. And some of these policies coming out of Washington, you see with the EPA and Obamacare and Dodd-Frank regulations, it's making it really difficult for them to grow their businesses.
Congressman, what do you see as your biggest accomplishment in D.C. so far as a congressman?
Yeah, well, I've been, when I first got there, a month later, I was named, I'm on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee and Agriculture Committee, and I was named chairman of a subcommittee on T&I. It's called Water Resources and Environment.
Okay.
And it's kind of right up my alley, I guess. Can't be an expert in everything, but I think I got some level of expertise in this area. And my committee has jurisdiction over the Army Corps of Engineers, so we're dealing with all the maritime transportation system, flood control, and eco restoration. And we also have jurisdiction over the EPA and the Clean Water Act on water. And so I passed, I was a primary sponsor on a major bill It's called the Water Resources and Reform Development Act. The last one was passed in 2007. This is the bill that authorizes and the processes for the Army Corps of Engineers for all their operations. And this bill was 3/4 of it was about reform. We streamlined the projects, getting it done. And what just frustrated me when I learned it was taking 15 years for the Army Corps to get all the studies done, the environmental studies, the economic studies, before they first turn of dirt was turned over. And so this bill gets it down to at least 3 years. So we do a lot of streamlining. We make available for local entities, if they have some money, they can proceed with their own money first to get the studies, get it on a fast track. We're not doing away with the studies, but we're saying it shouldn't take 15 years to get studies done.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Can you tell us what committees you're on the Congress?
Yeah, Transportation, Infrastructure, and Ag.
Okay.
And so I worked on the Farm Bill, on the Ag, and worked to food stamps is in the Farm Bill, and that's mandatory spending.
Okay.
We worked to try to reform that so that people that need the help get the help, and people that shouldn't be getting the help don't get it. And then one of my main emphasis was, and there's several titles in the Farm Bill. One was Title I, dealing with markets, how farmers participate in the farm program. And I want to make sure that our farm program is market-based, market-driven, that farmers are making their decisions based on what the market's telling them and not what the government policy is.
That's right.
And protect taxpayers at the same time. And so, we were fairly successful at that. But the Farm Bill is I really think the Farm Bill is a consumer protection bill, because I think most American consumers want to have most of their food, if not all of it, be grown or produced here in this country, not from overseas.
Right.
And so I think it's important that we have a safety net in place for farmers to protect our rural infrastructure. At the same time, though, also protect consumers, that they make sure they got a high quality and affordable food. And that safety net I really think should be crop insurance, because farmers buy into that. Most people can understand how insurance works. And so we tried to strengthen the crop insurance program, make it so it works so we don't have ad hoc disaster aids when we have drought. Like in some areas of the country, we've got drought out in California, 3 years in a row now, severe drought out there, and into the Oklahoma and Kansas areas in drought again this year.
Sure.
And so that affects prices, and you see that the 3 years of drought, or 2 or 3 years of drought we had a few years ago, what it's done to beef prices because of the culling of the cattle herd. We've got high beef prices right now because of that.
Hey, Congressman, I'm going to take a different approach
Okay.
here. Can you tell me about your family?
Yeah, my wife and I have been married for 38 years, coming up here in a couple weeks.
And what's your wife's name again?
Jody.
Yes.
And we got 3 grown children, Adam, Amy, and Andrew. And Adam and Amy both live and work in Columbus.
Okay.
And then Andrew is our hunter and fisherman of the family. He was out in Oregon, Wyoming. Now he's back in Idaho. Now he's back in northeastern Oregon, managing a large fish hatchery out there. And he had literally, we were out there when he was in Wyoming. He was assistant manager of fish hatchery in northwestern Wyoming last year, and he literally had to drive 35 miles to buy a loaf of bread. So
wow.
he's out,
He's out there.
He's out there, and he loves it. And he's married to a girl from Idaho, and they love to hunt and fish.
That's good. Congressman, can you tell me your educational background?
I went to Ohio State, the Agricultural Technical Institute in Worcester. I was in the first graduating class, and got interested. I actually grew up in Bay Village, so I'm a city kid who became a farmer, which is not normal, I guess. And we bought our first farm in the mid-'70s and started raising hogs and pigs. And then I got involved in Farm Bureau, and that's where I got my public policy experience. I served on the Ohio Farm Bureau Board of Trustees for about 20 years, and president of the Ohio Farm Bureau in the late 90s. And then, and it was interesting, here's a piece of trivia for you. The American Farm Bureau did a little study, and it turns out that I am the only former State Farm Bureau president elected to Congress in the history of the American Farm Bureau.
Wow, that's impressive.
So the bar's really high.
Congressman, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, obviously, when I'm home and try to do some stuff on the farm, there's always mowing, brush hogging to do or whatever, but I always like to do some projects, and I don't get to do that as much as I used to in this job, because this is more full-time. But we had some rentals, and we've done in the past, bought some houses and fixed them up and built some small rental deals, and I kind of sold most of them now. But 3 years ago, I built our own, I built a new house that we live in now on the other farm, and I was a general contractor, but I did all the wiring and plumbing, and I actually did that after I got elected to Congress in that December period before we got sworn in January. And so I worked pretty hard there. In November, I had to go to DC for a week for orientation, but I came back and I was busy wiring and putting in plumbing and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And
So you're quite handy around the house then.
yeah, well, I like that kind of stuff. We do a lot. I've done a lot of that. It's part of being a farmer. You know, that's one thing about agriculture. You know, you got your daily chores, but every day there's something else. You're doing something. You know, we build our own hog buildings and wired them and plumbed them and I taught myself how to weld. So done all that stuff.
Congressman, for every guest on the show, I like to play a game of fill in the blank.
Okay.
So the one place I want to travel to but have not traveled to yet is blank.
Well, my wife and I have always wanted to go to Hawaii.
Oh, Hawaii.
So that's one area. And
That's nice.
I've been pretty much in the continental United States. I think I've been in every state except Oklahoma in most of my adult life. So we've seen a lot of that. I'll tell you, there's a lot of beautiful places in this country to go visit.
It is.
And but Ohio's a great state. We've got a lot of stuff here in Ohio, and we take it for granted. But it's great to get out and see the country. And Alaska and Hawaii is someplace I need to get to sometime.
If I won the lotto, I would blank.
Well, first I have to play it. I don't know. We're it's always nice to have more finances, but we're in pretty good shape. I think now I'm at a point in my life. I just turned 60. I'm kind of at a point in my life where family and friends are a little bit more important, and you kind of reflect back. And it's I'll tell you one thing. It's really kind of odd. It seems odd. I've had young staff, and I got a staff in D.C. and staff here in Ohio, and lots of them in their 20s and 30s, and it's been neat. My first 2 years in Congress, we had zero turnover. Nobody left. And then, they get some good experience and the opportunities. I've always encouraged when opportunities come, I've always encouraged that they can improve their careers. And so we've seen some people move on, and I've seen young people in their mid-20s grow and learn a lot in the job.
That's
and
nice.
I think I've been part of that. And so that's, I guess reflecting back, maybe it's just I'm getting older, but that's been kind of a neat, kind of a rewarding something that I didn't even think of until it actually happened.
Oh, that's nice.
So it's kind of nice.
If I had one wish, it would be to blank.
Well, I don't think I'm pretty happy. We're pretty. I guess the one wish would be is I'm really concerned about the future of the country.
Sure.
And that wish would be that people felt more confident that this country's heading in the right direction. From 238 years now since we signed the Declaration of Independence. Every generation we've passed down to the next generation opportunity and a better life. And I'm concerned that we're at this point now that the next generation is concerned that they might not, might be the first time we pass down not what we should be passing down. Yeah. And so, when I look at the terrorism around the world and all the things that's going on, it's pretty scary, with all the ability to do a dirty bomb, do cyber attacks on our infrastructure and elsewhere. So, I guess if one wish, that people would see that free people are around the world much better off, and we can't be the policemen of the world, but we're in a position as a country to be a leader. We need to be a leader in the world. And if people in countries aspire for freedom and opportunities, we should do whatever we can to help them.
When talking to people from your district, do you sense that perhaps they feel that America right now is on the wrong track?
Yes. When they see a 17 trillion plus debt, and they see what's happening in the unemployment, a lot of people are concerned about their kids finding a job when they get out of school. A lot of people are concerned about, have a job now, if they're going to have a job, next week, next year. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, and it doesn't have to be that way. We can do some things, and I have kind of a 4-point plan I talk about a lot. And I think the real problem is the uncertainty coming out of watershed. We need to restore private sector confidence. And the way you do that is we get our fiscal house in order. People can see that we're not going to keep borrowing money, spending money we don't have. We have an energy policy that responsibly develops our resources in this country, and if you combine that with Canada, we can be a net exporter of natural gas for sure. and create a lot of jobs, a tax policy that lowers the rates, that encourages investment and risk, and private sector take on risk, and a regulatory policy that reforms. We talked earlier. We need regulations in a free market economy, but they got to make common sense. And my simple test is, if a business person's sitting at his desk and sees a new regulation come across his desk, he ought to be able to look at that and say, this makes sense. We should be doing this. Rather, why the heck are we doing this? And we don't need regulations layered on top of each other. Sure. I've sponsored some bills in the House. That's passed out of the House. I got some right now in my committee, dealing with the EPA. They're just overbearing. A lot of them are duplicative regulations. Don't make a lot of sense. We need common sense regulatory reform. And I think you do those four things, do it right. The American people will see that, and we've been such an innovative country, and entrepreneurs. We can rise to the occasion and be a great country again. Because the only way we get out of this mess is we got to get our spending under control, but we got to grow the economy. We've been growing, barely at 1%, and we had, nearly a 3% negative this last quarter. We need to be growing 4, 5, 6%. There's no reason why we shouldn't be, and so we're in a stagnant economy.
Right. Congressman, can you give any neighborly advice to people who are watching us right now in Brunswick, Brunswick Hills, Wadsworth Township, or perhaps people watching on the internet?
Well, I think we should look after our neighbors. I think, sometimes some people tend to look for the government to think they should be taking care of everybody. And if you got a neighbor, senior citizens, or everything, it wouldn't hurt to go over and check on them and just look after them and pay attention to what's going on, because, families, communities, that's what makes this country go. And if you really want to talk about happiness, we're on this world really a short time, and perspective, and you think about what makes people happy and quality of life is family, faith, community, and work. And if you're doing those things, you're probably pretty happy. And if you got a neighbor that needs a little help, give them a helping hand.
United States Congressman Bob Gibbs, thanks for coming down.
Thanks
coming up to see us here in Brunswick.
Glad to be here.
Yes, well, my name is Ron Falconi. I am the host of Meet Your Neighbor, and I wanted to thank United States Congressman Bob Gibbs for coming up here to Brunswick and chatting with us. I doubt there's anything more profound to be said, so my name is Ron Falconi. I am signing off. Adios.